Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB bikini pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today's guest is a 34-year-old entrepreneur, mother, and total sprinkle lover who started an online business as a fitness and nutrition coach after leaving a Fortune 500 company. She became an IFBB bikini pro in 2019 and embarked on her journey to the stage after giving birth to her son with strong faith and a commitment to being the best woman she can be for her loved ones. Welcome to the show, Chyanne Jacomini. How are you doing?
Oh my God, thank you so much for having me today. I'm doing really great. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. I'm excited that you're here, and I know you listen to the show, so I got to ask you, what is something you do or ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage?
Oh my goodness. It's funny. I listen to your show, and I know you ask this question every even think about it, but I don't have to put a lot of thought to it because it's really simple for me. I get so excited to get on stage. So for me, it's like being on the playground. So right before I get on the stage, I do the typical pump up, make sure I got all my carbs in. I do not listen to music like a lot of people do. Sometimes for me, it's a little distracting. It doesn't allow me to get that focus that I need. So I leave the headphones off, make sure I'm ready to jump on, got my heels, got that last sort of shine on. And really, I just get narrow focused. And sometimes I tune out everything around me. It's almost like I'm in my own little world and everything around me is spinning so fast and I'm just in that zone. I do just a little bit of posing and make sure, I have my angles ready, and I do, work on my posing prior to the stage, like everybody else.
Yeah.
So I make sure I'm ready to go prior to getting on the stage. The last little few touches before getting on stage, and man, I just get it's so exhilarating to me. I get so excited. I just can't wait to get up there. So I really don't have any particular listen to this song or do this or do that. Like I have heard about a lot of the people that you've interviewed. So for me, there's really nothing, exciting about what I do before I get on stage. It's really, for me, it's just about getting in the zone.
Yes, I love that. And you're right. It's such an exhilarating experience. It almost feels like, the more you inch up closer and closer to the stage, the more things start coming in on you and your heart's racing a little bit faster and you're just there in your own body. But it's a euphoric experience. And I'm much like you. I don't have a step-by-step ritual that I follow. So I appreciate you sharing that. And something I wanted to, I'm going to preface this episode, you guys. We're going to get into a lot of awesome topics. Like, I am so excited. We are going to broach topics that have not been broached, and it's going to be fantastic and get some really cool perspectives. So you guys, get ready, buckle up. It's going to be fun. Chyanne, first and foremost, I would love to hear a little bit about your background in corporate America and how you were able to get comfortable balancing work and family, or maybe what led you to leave corporate America, what you were doing, just a background on that.
Absolutely. So I was employed with AT&T for about 7 years, and it's a really good company to work for, great benefits. And, as I grew with the company, I was looking forward to, I had plans for myself and the company to move on up the ladder, because that's what I had seen a lot of my coworkers doing. I had a coworker who was there for 15 years, and she worked her way up the ladder, and she was kind of my mentor. And so, you know, I had those plans set for myself. The thing, the thing that happened was once I got into bodybuilding was I, you know, started competing, and I was still working at AT&T. My schedule was extremely crazy. Like when I say I literally lived by the minute, every minute of my schedule was taken during the day, and I was getting 4 hours of sleep on the daily. But
Oh, wow.
it didn't bother me because, you know, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to have that job so I can, you know, work and help take care of the family. And then I also wanted to compete because, you know, after giving birth to my son, which I know we'll probably get into a little bit later, I just wanted to be the best version of me. So I took the avenue of competing to get there. And, you know, I had somebody kind of help me, like mentor me into competing, but it wasn't so much on the scale of, you know, giving me all the details of everything. It was more just from her experience and from her competing. I just kind of watched her journey. So that kind of helped me go that route to decide to compete. Now, when we're talking about me competing and, you know, working for corporate America and then walking away from my job, oh man,
Mm-hmm.
it's not easy. So I had relocated to LA about, I want to say about 4 years after I started competing. And I transferred my job, so I was still working for AT&T in LA. And man, it was just obviously with the traffic and everything, it was so much harder to get to work. And I ended up moving again, you know, closer to where I was actually working. And even then, it was like I was driving an hour just 7 miles down the street from where I lived. It took me an hour. And, you know, I was like, this is
Crazy.
so crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, that's LA. You know,
Yep.
that's what
Oh, yeah.
you have to expect when you go there. When you live there, that's what you should expect. And, you know, so I was, you know, working, and my fiance, we always call each other, you know, husband and wife, because we've been together for a while, and that's just how we see each other. We just haven't tied the knot yet.
Really?
So we're not actually married.
What the
But,
heck? I had no idea.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're not married yet, but it's definitely, you know, in the books for the future. So anyways, when I was working at AT&T, you know, he was just like, he was in full support of me competing and, you know, working out. And he was just like, you know, you love to do this. Why don't you make it, you know, something that you can monetize on?
Yeah.
And, you know, I thought about it and tossing the idea around, and, you know, in my mind, I was like, nah.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, I get my check every week. So I
Mm-hmm.
was just like, no, you know, and we literally went round and round with that thought. And, you know, he's a business major, so he kind of threw some things at me, how he can help me and that kind of thing. And so I gave it second thoughts, and, you know, I just wasn't comfortable with it. I couldn't get myself to do it. And so finally he was just like, you know, I don't know why you continue to go this route, to work every day. You're coming home complaining about the job, you complaining
Mm-hmm.
about the traffic. He's like, you know, it could be, you can totally do this. Like, he was just encouraging me that I could do it. And so it finally got to the point to where I was just like, you know what? I'm going to make you a deal, okay? Because I needed to know that everything was going to be okay financially.
Yeah.
And so, and he's an entrepreneur. And so I told him, I said, you know, I need to have this amount of money in the bank before I walk away from my job. And we're not talking like, you know, a couple thousands of dollars.
Right.
Like
Right.
I needed a cushion for my mind, for me to be at peace with it, you know? And so we're very alike in a lot of ways. And, you know, we're very determined, and he's successful. He's been successful in his life. So he has a very strong will, and like he's up for any challenge. And so once I told him that about, you know, the balance that I needed to see in the bank before I walked away from my job, 2 weeks later, he came to me with the balance.
Are you serious?
I'm not lying.
So
2
what
weeks
did he
later,
do?
he's an entrepreneur, so he has his own business. He has his own streaming box company. So he designed his own streaming box, kind of similar to like the Roku.
Oh, that's awesome.
So he went to work, and 2 weeks later, which is no lie, he brought the balance to me and was like, okay, so I have my end of the deal fulfilled, and now it's your turn. And I looked at him, my
Wow.
jaw just like dropped to the floor.
That's
Because he didn't
crazy.
tell me about any of it. Like he was just working in silence. And I was just like, oh my God, are you serious? And I saw the receipt. I was logged in online. It said the balance. I was like, wait a minute. No, you know? And so
Yes.
he was like, I told you I was serious about this, and you know, I really want you to do well. I don't think you should be working at a Fortune 500 company, because you can be successful on your own and have the flexible schedule. You know, we have Milan, which is our 6-year-old, and you know, don't you want to have that flexibility with your schedule? And so I saw that balance, and you know, I looked at him. I was like, in the back of my mind, I looked at him and I was like, little shit, you know? But then I was just like, wow, he really did this. And, you know, I like to live up to my word. So like that same day, I sent my manager a message and told her I would like to put in my 2-week notice. You know, I didn't want to just walk away, leave him hanging. So that's exactly what I did. I gave him a
Wow.
2-week notice and walked away. And, you know, at first, like the first 2 weeks, it didn't sink in. And it literally probably took a couple of months before it sank in.
Yeah.
And it just felt like I was on, you know, vacation. And when I realized, like when I finally realized, you know, I wasn't going back to work, it was relieving, you know. At the same time, it was like, oh man, okay, so I didn't have anything planned at that moment as far as business.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, what do I do, you know? So I had to like wrap my head around it first before I could even start trying to do anything
Of course.
business-wise. So that's what I did. You know, I kind of just took the first couple of months and enjoyed the times that, you know, I never really had. Since like you know, when I had my son, I never had that kind of time. So I just really took advantage of that, and then started jumping into wrapping my head around what I wanted to get into, you know, with business. So yeah, so that's pretty much how the transition happened. It was probably the most scariest thing I've ever faced when it comes to finances.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you left something that was very secure and that was bringing home a lot of money and was helping to support you and your family and brought great benefits. And it was consistent. You were used to it. You knew what to expect. And entrepreneurship is not like that at all. We don't necessarily always have the consistency of a paycheck, but we always have the consistency of opportunity, which I really like about running my own business is that there are a lot of things within my control that otherwise wouldn't be. And you talked about how you were working a ton. And on top of that, the traffic as well. So that was impacting your rest. You know, you mentioned you were only sleeping like 4 hours a day. When you left, how did it impact your competing, like with regard to rest, spending time with your family, training, and then building your business? Like, how did this impact how you actually felt as an athlete?
Oh my goodness. It has impacted my life tremendously in the best way possible. It has given me a schedule that, well, really, it's not even a schedule, you know, it's me calling the shots basically. And, you know, obviously with the time, I want to make the best out of my time, but the time that I have, you know, I've obviously been getting more rest, which is super, super important, especially in the bodybuilding world. And in regards to rest, like, I'm so stubborn when it comes to sleeping. And I guess I've been like this since I was little. My mom said I never took naps. And when she tried to lay me down for naps, she would always find me somewhere outside, playing in the mud or doing something like that, besides taking a nap.
Oh.
So I've had to like force myself to rest, even with the schedule having more flexibility.
Yeah.
It's just because I'm so used to being on the go, 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 go. And, you know, sometimes Tony, he's my soon-to-be husband. Sometimes he's like, you know, babe, you got to slow down. Like, you are constantly going and going and going and going. You need to slow down.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, okay, yeah, I could do that. But then, like, you know, just when I get going throughout the day and stuff, it's like, if I have a list of things that I need to get done, then by the time, you know, by the end of the day, all those boxes need to have checks in them.
100%.
And if I don't get it finished, then I feel like, you know, I don't feel complete, and I feel like there's something missing, and it doesn't allow me to sleep well. So that's the way I, you know, operated for a very long time. And only, you know, just recently I've been able to like allow myself to rest and be okay with it.
Yeah,
because
that's
before
the
I would
biggest
be
part.
like, okay, exactly. Before I would be like, okay, you need rest, and I would allot for that time. But I wouldn't be that, like, I wouldn't be okay with it because I feel like I'm missing out on things. You know, so it has been nice. As far as like competing, I've, you know, been able to dedicate. I'm sorry, that's my my new puppy. He is. Oh my goodness. Can I pause 1 second? I need to go grab something from him. Sorry.
No, it's okay. All right.
Yeah. So as far as the flexibility with the time and competing, it's allowed me to get in the gym and get my workout in without having to feel rushed. Because before I was always on a time limit. I mean, even though I have more time with Milan, our 6-year-old, I still have like a 2-hour time limit in the gym because of the daycare and stuff like that. But before, there were times where I only had like an hour limit because of my schedule.
Right.
So being able to work out without having to feel rushed, because I can get my full workout in within 2 hours, no problem. That's absolutely no problem. But an hour is pushing it, you know, when you have goals and certain things you're working on. So, it's the flexibility has given me kind of, I guess I would say, a more peace of mind. You know, I don't always feel so rushed. I don't always feel like I got to do this or I got to do that. I mean, obviously, I still have a schedule. I still have a lot of things going on. It's more, I'm able to complete everything more with peace, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, makes total sense to me. And are you still living in LA?
No, I relocated to Las Vegas at the end of last year. So I've been in Vegas for not quite a year yet, but getting close to it.
And what led to that move? Because I know your last relocation, it wasn't a good experience for you. It was difficult for you to manage like your physique and your time. I believe you had mentioned in a post like it was just really tough on you and inspired you actually to compete again in another show, which I definitely want to talk to you about. But what inspired
Hmm.
this move to Vegas, and how did you handle moving differently this time around?
Absolutely. Moving from LA to Vegas, for some very obvious reasons. Cost of living is absolutely way cheaper here. We had some business things bring us over here. It was just, when we came in July of last year, when I competed for my pro card, we kind of browsed around while we were here because we'd never really been to Vegas outside of the Strip,
Hmm.
So we stayed with a friend in Henderson, and we were like, wow, this is really nice. And, the neighborhood, the area was, super attractive. And so when I competed, got my pro card then, and then the day after we literally just drove around Las Vegas looking at houses, looking at areas, just kind of getting a feel for everything. And then we went back home to LA. And then Tony and I, we are just so kind of like, how do I put it? We're spontaneous.
Yeah. Hmm.
If there's something on our mind and it doesn't go away, then it has to happen. And if it doesn't happen, then, we find a way to make it happen. So when we went back to LA, he was like, what do you think about moving to Vegas? And I looked at him like with a look that could kill. Like he would have been dead, if looks could kill. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah. And, and he gave me like the reasoning and like what his thoughts about it, and everything made sense because where we're at in LA, we're like right in the heart of the disaster is what I like to call it.
Yeah.
Right at the 405 and the 10. And so, I mean, it just gets crazy there. Like you can't even live normal. And when I say normal, I mean like if you just want to go to eat somewhere, or if you just want to go see a movie, like everything is a process there. Like
Yeah.
you have to plan 2 hours for anything you do.
Yep.
So, when he mentioned that to me, and we just started looking at places online and kind of looking at areas online, even though we drove around and stuff. And we literally just packed our stuff. And I would say, so the show was in July. We came here, I think it was September, October. So we made a pretty quick decision and just made the move. And
Hmm.
honestly, it's been so relieving. I love it here in Vegas. And I thought I would never say that. I was so like, I wasn't really wanting to come here because I never really imagined myself living outside of California, because that's where, my family is, that's where I was born and raised.
Hmm.
And just the thought of moving alone, like even though moving from NorCal, which is where I'm from, moving from NorCal to LA, the reason for the move was awesome. Like it was a wonderful opportunity for me with
Right.
AT&T. And so it wasn't that the move was bad. It was just me personally, I do not like moving. Like it's just a process. I hate packing things up in boxes. And then when you get there, you got to unpack it. I just cannot stand the process. And I don't know if it's because, I mean, I really don't know I haven't moved around a lot in my life, from my parents raised me. We never really moved a lot. So I never really got used to that. And I don't think anybody ever really does, but just something that strikes anxiety in me. And every time I move, my weight goes up at least a little bit. It's not, when I moved from NorCal to LA, my weight went up a lot. And it's just because I get I get anxiety when the move happens. And, I'm not like a stress case or anything like that. Like I don't stress a lot. It's just with moving in particular, like I like to have everything in order, and I like to be organized because that's the environment that I can focus the best in.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're moving and everything's scattered, and it just doesn't work for me. And trust me, I'm one of those movers who's very organized. I pack everything in boxes, label them, and this goes in that room, all that kind of stuff. And even with that, I'm just like, I don't like to move. And so thankfully, when I relocated from Los Angeles to Vegas, I did not put on the weight that I did when I moved from Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's almost like
So
you
the
were more prepared.
The transition was a lot smoother for me, even though I wasn't as open to it as I was when I moved to Los Angeles. But, there's a point in time where when you're with somebody, you trust them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that Tony has my best interest. I know that he's very smart. He's very intelligent. And he does a lot of research, and, he makes educated decisions. So when he talked to me about moving to Las Vegas and gave me his reasons and his opinions, I kind of took his lead. And
Yeah,
because if he has my best interest. So the only thing, I told him, I said, you know what, I've never imagined myself moving outside of California. I said, but I'm it. And if it doesn't work, then we'll try something different. It's not like we can't move back, and God forbid, I don't want to move again. But,
right.
but, it's like plan A doesn't work out, blow it up, and let's go to, well, that's basically what it was. And, I just, like I said, I followed his lead, and it's honestly been such a huge blessing to move here. It's been wonderful for us. So we've been enjoying it. We're getting used to, finally.
Yeah.
It is crazy heat this summer.
Oh God.
But other than that, yeah. And other than the heat, it's there's certain areas you do not want to be in, and we've already experienced some of those areas. And I'm happy to say that Henderson is the place that we absolutely love. And it put me at, I think it was a couple weeks ago, I read an article about the top 5 safest cities in the United States to live in, and Henderson was number 2.
Wow.
I was like, this is a sign. Okay, we're not going anywhere.
That's awesome.
So yeah, with I think it was Virginia Beach was the number 1 city, the number 1 safest city to live in.
Wow.
Really surprised, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely in Henderson. I definitely feel a different vibe here, especially compared to LA, and even just compared to other parts of Las Vegas. So we have it here.
Good. Well, I'm glad that it worked out for you guys. And like you said, you trusted Tony. He proved himself right, and you got to experience that and see what he was talking about, and develop your own opinion as well. And it worked out for you. So I kind of want to talk to you about your relationship with Tony as well. But I think a big part of this is actually talking about your journey through motherhood and into like monetizing your bodybuilding journey and your expertise in fitness. So you've talked about how motherhood was life-changing for you and really a gift for you and propelled you into, or at least influenced your bodybuilding journey. So and before that, you had even been vegan and living health, like that's kind of what introduced you to the healthy lifestyle. So how did this evolve from motherhood to eventually pro bikini competitor?
Yeah, so when so Milan is our 6-year-old. He's actually from my previous relationship. But Tony has been in his life since he was 2.5. And so Milan knows Tony as dad, and he calls him dad. So it's just been a blessing to have Tony in our lives and help me raise Milan. And, he's taught him so much already. And so transitioning, going into motherhood happened before Tony. But the thing propelled my fitness journey. The way I got into competing was, I wanted to get into the best shape of my life after giving birth to Milan, because I knew that I wasn't healthy. I wasn't going to be able to give Milan my best. So I used competing as kind of the platform to get there, because I knew, like I said, I had a friend who competed, and I kind of watched her journey. And so, I knew that it was going to come with a strict regimen, that I would have to get in the gym and work out, and that I would get results. I was just, I was tired of feeling icky, for the lack of better words. I just felt like, pregnancy, the body changes, hormones change. So I just felt really, really, especially with being an athlete, playing 3 sports in high school, 1 in college, I definitely didn't feel anywhere near, where I was at when I was playing sports. But I understand, motherhood brings that changes. And so I just wanted to see where I can take my body after having a baby, and not really for the looks of anything, but just for being healthy and being able to provide, for Milan. And so I competed in my first show, and I had got my body to the best it had ever looked, even before I was pregnant with Milan. And it was extremely hard because, I did a 12-week prep, and I was doing the show just to get on stage and to have fun with it, but I wanted to do the prep for the results. So I did a 12-week prep, and I was putting in work, hours. I mean, working my tail off like I never did before, right? I was taking progress pictures, and I wasn't really seeing any progress. And even after, like, this was at the 8-week mark, I'm like, man, I'm doing all this work and I don't see any progress at all. Like, what is going on, And so the guy who was helping me at the time, he was a friend of my friend who was competing. She was the one I was watching. So they were kind of just helping me together. And so they're like, don't give up, just keep going, trust the process. That's when all that started. I was like, okay, I don't know what this means, but I'm just going to keep going like I know how, because I'm an athlete. I don't give up, so I'm not giving up, right? So, so I kept going, and it was about 4 weeks before getting on stage. And mind you, I have all this stuff going on, right? I'm working at AT&T. I'm still being mommy. Everything, like the balancing of everything. It was a lot. And so 4 weeks out from my show, I'm checking in, doing my comparison photos, and I still didn't see any changes. So now I started to get nervous, because I was like, okay, I've been doing this for 8 weeks. Nothing's showing. And I'm like, am I going to look like a fool on stage? Or, I'm like, all these thoughts are going through my head, because when I was an athlete, I was one of the top athletes. And so I'm used to being at the top of of performing. So I was like, there's no way I'm going to get on that stage and make a fool out of myself. I can't do this. Like, I'm not going to do this. And so, like, I literally, one morning I woke up and I just put everything, I'm done. I'm not doing this. This is BS. Like, I'm putting in way too much work. Nothing's happening for me. and I don't feel any changes. I don't see any changes. And, you know, I was like, it was so frustrating. And so I sat my little self down, had a pity party, and and I ended up going to work out that same day. You know, I went to work out, and I had a talk with the two people who were helping me, and there's like, you're almost there. Like, why are you tripping? You know? And I'm like, well, I don't see anything. Like, I don't feel the changes, and you know, I don't. Why? Like, I don't get it. I'm doing all this work, and I'm doing everything to the T, and nothing's changing. I'm eating everything to the T. You know, following the, crossing all my T's, dotting all my I's, and nothing's changing. So my first prep really taught me what trust the process meant. You know, so
yes,
it was the weeks before I stepped on stage, and I was at the gym, and I was doing some ab work, and my trainer was like, whoa, pull your shirt back up, because I had a tank top on, and he wanted to see how my abs were coming in. And I was like, what? And so I was doing, you know, hanging leg raises, and he was like, you have to see your stomach. I was like, I see my stomach every day. What are you talking about? And he was like, you have to see your stomach. And so he showed, like, I was doing the leg raises in the mirror, and he lifted my, was like, look at your abs. And I looked in the mirror, and I was like, where did those come from? Like,
yes.
I've been so mad the last 2 weeks because, you know, I haven't had any, and all of a sudden, like, these abs just showed up. Like, what in the heck is going on? You know? But at the same time, I was like, oh my God, finally, like, something is showing. Thank you, you know? And that moment, it just propelled me. Like, I was just like, let's go. Okay, I got some results. Now I know I can get some more. So let's go. So yeah, I was just so excited at that point, and I was like, thank you, Lord. Like, I was ready to quit. I was so mad, frustrated, and like I was done, right? I wanted to check out. But
it's always like
it was
right
at that
before,
point where, oh my goodness,
it's like right before we give in is when we start to actually see the results. And bodybuilding teaches us to be patient, and it sounds like that really motivated you when you saw your results.
Yes, I mean, it's so true. To be successful in bodybuilding, you have to have patience, and you have to stay consistent. And I know it's like, you know, you hear that all the time, but it's so true. And it's much easier said than done. That's for sure.
But so rewarding when it's done.
Absolutely.
So you
Absolutely.
actually,
it's extremely rewarding.
yes, it is rewarding. And you actually did well at that show. And in all your shows, even when hitting the national stages from 2016 throughout your time in the NPC all the way to your few national shows you did, you always placed top 5. And then in the pro league, you've only missed top 10 one time, which is crazy. So that actually got me curious of what it was like for you to go from the NPC to the IFBB and the feedback you got along the way as your journey in the NPC and into the IFBB.
Yeah, absolutely. Competing, you know, like you said, I've always placed top 5. Going from the NPC to the IFBB has been incredible. For me, it has been a dream come true. It took a lot longer than what I expected for myself. But when I got into bodybuilding, I lifted weights before. So when I got into bodybuilding was right when I started. And I wouldn't say that I'm genetically gifted. So I've had to work for everything that I have up to this point as far as my physique. Excuse me. So it took me about 5 years to get my pro card. And within those 5 years, I took a year break. And I had competed in probably, I want to say about 10 shows or so. So finally, when I started started competing at the national shows, I was missing it, barely missing it. And it was frustrating, but more so than ever, I had to change my mental attitude about it, because I was finally starting to realize that if I wanted to go pro, because I follow a lot of pros, I pay attention to what they do, and most of the pros get fat in their off season. They stay at a pretty good weight, within 8 to 10 pounds of their stage weight, and that's very helpful when it comes to competing again, not having it's less shoddy. And so for me, as an NPC competitor, as an amateur, I was super strict when I would prep for a show. And then when I wasn't prepping, it was just intuitive eating. So whatever my body want, I gave it. And of course, we're women. We have our menstrual cycles, so we get cravings, and all the fun foods come into play. You know it. If you don't keep track, before you know it, you're 10, 20 pounds. And for me, it was 30 pounds that I put on. And so I had to change my mental approach about it. And I had to ask myself, okay, so is this something that you truly like to do? Like, is this your passion? And if it is, and you want to become a pro, some change, because you're not going to be successful. And so I got into bodybuilding, obviously, because I had my son, but bodybuilding wasn't the reason. Like, I didn't get into do bodybuilding, and I continued to do bodybuilding because I continued to compete, because it was so much fun for me. Being on stage reminded me of being on the runway floor. I used to do runway modeling, and it was extremely fun for me. Unfortunately, I couldn't continue that because they said I was too fat.
Wow.
Excuse me. So they said I was too fat, and I let that get to me, and I just ended it there. I didn't want to continue. I didn't want to deal with all of that. And I definitely wasn't going to, do other things the other girls were doing to be skinny. So I said, this is not for me, So being on stage kind of reminded me of that. And that was a super fun point in my life. And so I did, continue to compete. And so, like I said, I had to change the way I thought about it, because now I wasn't just doing it to be in the best shape of my life. Now I was doing it because I want to turn pro, because I love to do this. It's become my outlet. And so, after doing the first national show I was supposed to compete in, the time where I went to Palm Springs and competed in the Lou Ferrigno show. And I wasn't able to go to nationals then because of a sponsorship mishap. They were supposed to pay for my show expenses, and a week before they told me they weren't going to be able to, so I wasn't able to compete in Miami at that time. I had to go to a local show.
So that's when you did the Lou Ferrigno show?
Excuse me. So that's when I did the Lou Ferrigno show, and I ended up taking overall win at that show. And it was such a wonderful experience. One, because I put in so much work for that show. Well, it was supposed to be for nationals. I put in so much work for it because I was like, I'm going up against the best in the amateur league. So I have to bring it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it ended up working out well. I didn't go to nationals, competed as a show, got the overall, and everything happens for a reason. I truly believe that. So after taking home the overall and kind of seeing how everything played out, it was well worth it. And shortly after, then let's see, that was the end of 2017. I got on the national stage for the first time in 2018 and placed top 5. Continued to, I did all shows. Well, I did 3 national shows that year, and couldn't get my pro card.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a little frustrating. So after the 3rd national show, I was like, is this really for me? Like, am I this, And I know, like, it takes time to build muscle, and it takes a lot of work. But for me, it had already been 5 years, and, putting in work has been the most consistent. The food hasn't always been consistent with me, but the gym has. And so I'm like, if I've been doing this for 5 years, if I did it for 5 more years and I don't turn pro, then this is not for me. I just need to give that up, and if I like to work out, to just leave it at that. So finally, my 4th, let's see, 1, 2, 3, my 4th national show, Coach Ryan Hinton was coaching me at that time. And when I first got with him, I was in really, I wasn't training for a show or anything, but that's at the point where I changed my mental approach and kept my weight within a certain, weight limit off from weight. And it wasn't the 8 to 10 pounds that everybody goes by, but it definitely wasn't the 30 to 35 pounds that I had to work off before. So when I first got to Ryan, and, I asked a whole bunch of questions, and, he was like, I can definitely coach you. And he's like, I'll turn you pro your first show, your first national show with me.
Wow.
And I was like, man, this guy's pretty confident. I just thought to myself, like, wow, he's pretty confident. And at first I didn't really know how to take that, because I didn't know him at the time, And I kind of took being like arrogant at first. And then the more that I talked to him before saying, yes, I want you to be my coach, the more I talked to him, I realized he's not being arrogant. He's just very confident in his coaching skills. And so for him to say that to me, I also looked at it as he believes in me, like he believes in my capabilities, let alone his coaching skills. So I said, yeah, let's do it. And we did a 50, because, we were already so far out. We didn't want to start too early. So we ended up doing a 15-week prep. And first national show with Ryan, he turned me pro.
That's awesome.
And he's like, I told you. I was like, thank you so much. You believed in me more than I believed in myself. And I honestly think that was the missing piece to the pie as to why I wasn't turned. There were a few things that I did different with the prep. And now, so let me back up. So I'm a firm believer now in manifesting your dreams and manifesting what you want to happen. So that was one of the only shows that I envisioned. Like, I literally laid down in bed, closed my eyes, and I did closed my eyes, and I put myself on stage, and I walked myself through the whole routine, hit my turns, the transitions, And, following that, I envisioned everything. And I also envisioned myself getting the pro card. So I feel like that had a huge part to do with it, because it gave me moments in myself to make it happen as well. And so, obviously with the help of Ryan and me taking a different approach to the stage, it allowed me to get my pro card. And it was the best feeling ever. I had been working so long for it, and it was just, I kind of wasn't surprised when I got it, but at the same time I was, because it's like, is this really happening right now? But it's been amazing. The transition from being amateur to a pro has been incredible. And, right away I did 2 pro shows right off the bat. I didn't want to wait. I just wanted to jump in, and I placed top 10 within, it was top 2, and then I did another pro show, and I believe it was 14th or something like that in Texas. So it's been fun getting on stage with the pros. The backstage experience is so different than the amateur experience. I just feel like we're just a big group of sisters backstage, and it's incredible. Everybody's just so uplifting and so positive compared to like the amateurs. There's a little more cattiness backstage at the amateur shows, at least from what I've experienced myself. And I mean, I've seen a few bad things backstage, but I've always just kind of, isolated myself and just focused on me getting up on the stage. So being backstage at the pro shows, I've been a little more open to talking to. I just completely shut myself out and focused, So yeah. There was another question you asked. What was leading up to?
That was interesting. I appreciate you sharing all that. And and your journey to the pro stage and what that's been like for you. So I do appreciate you getting into that. And you said a few things that stood out to me. And one of those things was, the amount of weight you gain after a show. And I just want to preface, to everybody listening, there is not a magic number. It's not like you're gonna fail yourself if you end up going way over, or if you don't end up getting your weight up or whatever, because we have to remember that some amateurs, like, they need to put on more muscle. And if they never gained any weight, or they just obsessed over a 5-pound, like, they wouldn't get where they want to go improvement wise for the most part. But then again, there is a healthier approach, and there's a peaceful approach in terms of the mental state and the commitment. And I also think it's really cool how you talked about Ryan really believed in you. And actually another girl we just had on, she was talking about that too, with Ryan as well. And it got me wondering, like, what led you to end your coaching with, maybe I shouldn't say it like that, but I know you're working with Fit Body Fusion now, and you even promote their coaching and you run your own business. So I'm curious, like, what are you, like, you promote Fit Body Fusion, you also run your own nutrition and training business, right?
Yeah, so I kind of have my business on just because I have some other things going on. Me and Tony have some other things going on with business. So I have my personal nutrition and fitness on hold. So which is what kind of propelled me to go from Ryan to Jamie. And Ryan holds a special place in my heart, and he knows this. And when I went to him and was him about my goals and how I wanted to evolve in the fitness industry and become better at being a coach, being a mentor, and helping others with their fitness journey, I wanted to be under a very structured plan, because that's how I operate the best. I operate with structure, and and not saying that Ryan doesn't have structure or Ryan does organization or anything like that, because he does. He has his way of doing things with coaching, and it works for him. And he's obviously been successful. But as far as like mentoring other people, he didn't provide the approach that I was interested in. And so I even went to him and talked to him about it, because, you know, I had no issues with Ryan at all. Like, he was incredible. And not only because, you know, I got my pro card, but because his approach, the way he deals with his competitors, he's very diligent. He's just very good at what he does. And, you know, I connect with Brian on a good level because we're similar in a lot of ways. And I think that comes with being an athlete. But I went to Ryan and I told him, you know, what I wanted to do, and if he could help me and if he could mentor me, you know, so to speak. And he didn't on what I was looking for. However, he tried to put something together and be like, well, I can help you with this. You know, he's like, well, you know, what number are you looking at? What type of money are you wanting to bring in? And so, you know, I told him what my goal was, and he was just like, can you give me 30 days and we'll work on this. And I was like, 30 days? 30 days for what? You know, and he's like, well, I really want to help you. And he's like, I don't offer any mentorships at that. And he's like, but I don't just want you to, you know, he's like, I want you to succeed. And however that means, you know, whatever that means, I want to help you get there. And so I told him, I said, you know, if that's something that you don't do, that's okay. I don't want to put any added stress to your plate because I know you have a ton of competitors. And so I asked him, I said, you know, do you have who you would recommend? I said, this is who I've seen in the industry who has a very structured program. And do you have anybody in mind that, you know, that you think for me as to what I'm looking to do? And he's like, she's the only one I would recommend. And we're talking about Jamie, which, you know, Fit Body Fusion. And he was like, yeah, if you're looking for, you know, the structure that you're telling me about, he's like, Jamie is the only one I would feel comfortable with sending you to. He's like, as much as I don't want to lose you as a competitor, I want what's best for you. I want you to be happy. So I recommend her, you know. And so I told him, like, you know, this is a very hard decision for me because, you know, I really liked him as a coach, and I didn't want to leave him as a, you know, I didn't want him no longer to coach me. So I was trying to think of, like, could I go to Jamie and still be coached by Ryan? But no, that doesn't make any sense, Chyanne. Like, be quiet, you know? So I told him, I was like, you know what, give me a couple of days. I really need to think about this. I'm not going to make a decision on, you know, I told him I need to talk to Jamie. I need to ask her all the questions that I have. And because I want to make an educated decision, and I want to make a decision that I'm going to feel was the right decision. So I called Jamie, and I talked to her on the phone. It was, oh man, it was like an hour and a half. Anytime, you know, whenever there's something new, especially coach, I have 1,000 questions. And I've been doing this for 5 years. So I kind of, actually 6 years. So I kind of know, like, what questions to ask. And especially with, you know, you only know what you see on Instagram. So, and that's not always, you know, it's not always the case in some situations. So after I talked to Jamie, I mean, I knew a fit body when I got into the industry. I didn't know, them to the extreme, but I knew a little bit about them. So I talked to Jamie, and then a couple of days later, really had to think about it because, Jamie's plan, she has her competitors on macros. They count their macros. And I'm so used to, what I like the quote unquote bro diet, where you're just given a meal plan and that's what you eat and that's what you only eat. Mm-hmm. You don't do any flexible this, flexible that, nothing, That's what I'm used to. For some people, they're like, man, that's very rigid. And for me, it's like, it's structured. That's what I'm used to. That's what I thrive on. And so for me, going from a very structured plan to a very flexible, it had me kind of like, I want to say, for the lack of better words, I was bamboozled. Like, I didn't know what to think.
Yeah.
Like, I was at first, and then I was not scared. And then because, when you go off a structured plan for so long, your body gets used to those foods, and anything else you put into your body, it can have a negative effect, right? Mm-hmm. So I just instantly thought, like, okay, I'm just gonna, not necessarily blow up and gain a lot of weight, but I didn't see it for the good that it is. I only saw it because it wasn't structured,
Right.
And so I had to open my mind up to having a flexible plan. And I think the other with myself that I had was, I'm going to be on a plan in my off season. And that's never happened before. I've never been on a plan in my off season. It's just always been intuitively eating. And so, I called Ryan back a couple of days later after talking to Jamie, and I was like, Ryan, I really hate to do this. And I cried. I cried because, you helped me reach my dreams. And now I'm leaving you for another coach. And I feel like crap. And I told him, I said, once everybody finds out that I'm no longer with you, you're going to get a ton of messages. Why? And I know I'm going to get messages too. And so, I kind of just had to tell myself, like, I can't worry about my transition from Ryan to Jamie. I can't worry about, if they're, going to say negative things about me, or because that's what I was thinking. It's like, oh, I go from Ryan, who just helped me get my pro card, to, Fit Body Fusion, and, people are going to say stuff. And so finally I just told myself, like, and I don't even know why I let myself get to that point, because I'm pretty out not letting what others think affect me in a negative way. And so I need to switch. And, Ryan, I cried, like, this is going to be good for you. He encouraged me. And he told me that he didn't want to lose me as a competitor, but he wanted what was best for me, and that he fully used me on my move from being coached by him to being coached by Jamie. And so that really helped my transition to Fit Body Fusion, because it was something that I wanted to do, but I wanted to do under my conditions. And under my conditions didn't make any sense. So I had to do it, I had to make the transition from one team to the other. And so I did that. I got messages from people, a lot of girls that messaged me, they were very nice about it. Their approach, nice. And and obviously, you know, I have the option not to respond to anybody, but I'm not that type of individual, regardless of whether it's negative or positive. I typically don't acknowledge negative people on Instagram or on social media, period. But, you know, there's a time and place for it. And for the most part, with the transition, I was, you know, people were curious, and they were nice with their approach with asking. So it was a very nice transition. And I've been with Jamie now since the beginning of 2020. So literally after I stepped off Texas, which was December, the first week of December in 2019, I transitioned to Jamie, and we got started the first week of January. And it's been incredible. I mean, I cannot say how happy I am right now to be on a flexible plan. And the other major thing for me is to be on a plan in my improvement season, because I've never done that before. And, you know, it was a little tough at first. Like I had a couple of rough weeks where, you know, I ate over my max, and it was just still hard for me to wrap my head around having a plan in my off season. And now we're 6, almost 7 months in, and it was funny because just yesterday I was telling Tony how happy I am to be on the flexible dieting. It has allowed me to eat the healthy foods, you know, that I wasn't even eating before on a structured plan.
Right.
And aside from that, it has allowed me to maintain a good weight and a good body structure in my off season. Like I'm extremely happy with my physique right now in my off season. I like improvement season. Others know it as off season. I think, you know, I look the best now compared to any other improvement season I've had, and I think that's the best that I've ever felt. I feel very confident with my skills, meaning like I'm not scared of any foods. I'm not, you know, I don't feel bad if I eat a food or anything like that. Everything is controlled, and, you know, it's my improvement season, so I'm getting a good amount of calories as well. So it's always, you know, a little easier to eat when you have more calories in your diet. The great thing about it is, and I've really never experienced this before since I've started competing. The great thing about it is I don't need cravings, and I feel like it's abnormal in a way because I'm used to having cravings, you know. But it's incredible. I don't have any cravings, so, you know, I don't feel the need to go and gorge on some chocolate or stuff my face with, you know, pasta or whatever, like, you know, whatever I'm craving at the moment. Like I have cravings, so I'm not experiencing that. And even with, you know, our monthly cycles that us women go through, yeah, I get a little bit more hungry, but it's not how it was compared to before. Like, man, I would just want to eat a whole box of chocolate and just call it a day. I don't get that feeling anymore. I believe that it's because I'm getting the balance of those, you know, those sugars, the sweets and stuff, that I'm able to incorporate it into my plan. You know, too much of anything is not good for you. So incorporating it with moderation. And so that has been extremely, it's for me, it's just extremely satisfying. And I absolutely didn't think I was going into it, going into the prep with Jamie, it was a little hard for me at first because I wasn't used to tracking everything that I put in my mouth. Like I've never done that before. And it's a little challenging at first, but once you do it over and over again, and you just get used to it, you make a schedule for yourself, or you make habits, so to speak. And it just becomes all. And like I said, I'm 6 months in, and I am enjoying it. I feel great. I feel strong. My energy levels are extremely high. Doing, hardly any cardio. The only thing I do right now with cardio is I make sure I get at least 10,000 steps a day. And just from what I do daily, I get close to 11 every day, if that, sometimes 15. It just depends, And then there's just one day out of the week where I do 6 sprints, and that's it. Other than that, I don't do any cardio, and maintaining a very good weight, especially compared to before. So I'm really, really at peace with my improvements even, and I'm extremely excited to see where Jamie is going to take me for my next show, because we've decided that we're not going to compete this year. So we have a lot of time. We're already 6 months into improvement season, so have a good amount of time to continue to improve my proportions for when we do decide to do a show. So yeah, it's been incredible. And as far as like for the business aspect, for the transition from Ryan to Jamie, as I would like to be a coach under her wings, and whenever she feels I'm ready for that, she will allow me to do so. And we've talked about it and stuff. And I just continue to do what I do on a daily. And when she decides I'm ready to be a coach, then that's the route I will go. And I'm excited. So I couldn't be more excited about my transition from Ryan to Jamie, although it was very, very hard. But like I said, Ryan is a good guy. He wants the best for his athletes, obviously on the stage, and then, off the stage with business aspirations. So I'm very for him, because again, he helped me with the transition to Jamie, and they're really good friends. So it helped my transition tremendously, because they know each other and they're really good friends, and they're both coaches. So, and I believe Jamie even has had some of her coaches, or not coaches, her competitors transition to Ryan. So, the little bond that they have is kind of cool, because if they feel that a competitor is not right for them, they can kind of feed off each other and kind of give each other competitors. But I mean, I don't think they do that often, because, obviously they want competitors to the best that they can. But in my situation, it was a good thing, that Ryan was able to say, you know what, Jamie is the only person I could say comfortable with sending you to. So that has been super, super helpful for me,
Absolutely. Yeah, I had the opportunity to speak with both Jamie and Ryan on Coaches Week, and everything you just shared doesn't surprise me at all. Ryan has always been a very supportive person. Jamie talked about her business aspect too, grooming her coaches and making sure everyone's on the same page. So I could see where you're getting that structure and why you'd be interested in that. And I can also see why it was so difficult to leave Ryan. Obviously, I think that in this sport, we're better together, and the fact that they can collaborate in that way. And I know he collaborates with lots of coaches. I mean, he even has his own podcast doing that. But I think when you have people in the industry who are aware of their strengths as well as the type of athletes they want to work with or can help and support the most. And then other coaches are as well. It allows for more growth in the industry as a whole, because then you're not working with athletes you don't want to work
Absolutely.
with or whatever. And it gave you the opportunity to then develop a bit of a business through their affiliate program there, but also eventually with the goal of hopefully coaching with them. And you did mention that this has been your best improvement season yet. And yes, it was a transition to get used to tracking things, and you feel like you've gotten a lot more freedom with food because of it. I'm curious how your workouts have changed, if at all.
Well, I can say that I've never lifted this heavy in my improvement season. It's like I said, it's been amazing. It has propelled my lifting. I've been able to hit PRs that I've never even come close to, prior years. So it's definitely an approach that even though I've only been doing truly counting macros for 6 months, it's definitely an approach I highly recommend, because one, if you're not a competitor, it's going to allow you, it's sustainable. It's sustainable 100%. It's something that you can do. You can flexibility with your food and not feel guilty. The food relationship is, the capability of that. Obviously, each person is different, but the capability of the relationship with food it can be very, very positive. So for me, I know what types of food, as far as the goal is to eat the most holistic that you can possibly eat, right? And it's okay to have the fun foods. That's the best thing about it. But in my improvement season, I know what types of food I should eat before and after to kind of feel my workouts and then just to recover from them. So I feel like that has been a huge part in me being able to lift heavier and hit PRs. I have my weeks where, I'll hit a PR one week and then the next week I do that same training regimen and I can't hit that PR again because I don't feel as strong.
Yeah.
Not because of a lack of strength. I don't think it's a lack of strength. For me, it's just, I feel like it's part of the growing process. And, this is where I feel like a little bit of impatience, including myself, with growing, is we want to see better, results each and every single time we step our foot in that gym. And, there's just some times where your body just needs time to grow, and it can't grow if it doesn't recover properly.
Mm-hmm.
So, me and my improvement season has been to pull back from lifting as heavy as I did the week before, lower the weight and focus not on the weight, but focus more on the form and the squeeze, the muscle-mind connection, which is always going, that should always be the focus regardless. But when you be, sometimes your ego can get in the way, and you see numbers, because we track the numbers, like, all the weights that I lift, kind of stuff, right? So when you look at those numbers, your goal is to go higher, right? Your goal is to lift heavier, to become better, so to speak, right? But that doesn't always happen, in the sense to, the numbers are not always your proof in the pudding.
Right.
And
that's true of all numbers.
Right. And so, I trained this morning, and just today, I was training back, and last week, man, I had a killer back session, and I had a few PRs, and I was just feeling really, really, really good and strong. And I wanted to go do the same, regimen, and it's like, hey, man, last week I did this, and I'm struggling today, And so I was like, you know what? It's okay. Like, I had to tell myself, like, don't trip. Okay. Just bring the weight down. You don't have to kill yourself, because, you work hard already. You don't have to kill yourself. And you definitely don't want to injure yourself.
No,
So
exactly.
that's been my other thing too. Like, I don't want to get in, that prevents a lot of people from, one, competing, and then two, from even being able to go to the gym. And so, I just had to tell myself, like, kind of chill out.
Yeah.
Just chill out.
Yes.
So,
Sometimes that's the
had to
best
lower
thing we
the
can
weight.
do.
I just lowered the weight, and, just went a little slower in my movements, and, I was still it just wasn't as heavy as my PRs last week. So, I still had a great workout, even though the weight weren't as heavy. But like I said, it's not always about that.
Yeah.
And form is good.
So something that you've probably heard me ask other girls on here before is, like, what is your go-to move, or what's your go-to or favorite thing for shoulders, and then for glutes, and then for hamstrings? Like, if you could only pick one for the rest of your life.
Ooh, if I can only pick one for the rest of my life, for shoulder, honestly, I think I would have to go with a traditional. Oh goodness, this is hard. Because I really like doing lateral raises, because my arms are so long and
Yes.
lengthy. It's hard for me to build my shoulders. Like, I feel like it doesn't matter how much I train shoulders. Like, they're just so long and lengthy. So I like the lateral raises, just because that's one of my weakness. That's my weak spot. I can never get the cap on my shoulders. And I mean, I know it's a combination of a whole bunch of different workouts, but
And what about for glutes?
I would have to say lateral raises. For glutes, another one of my weaknesses are my Chyannes, and I think a lot of women experience this. So for me, for glutes, it would have to be the hip thrust.
Okay, and what about hamstrings?
Hamstrings, my go-to has been lying hamstring curls, and it's just a basic workout, but when you follow the glute master and his well, he's called the glute guy on Instagram, he has some really good information out there. And so I've kind of tweaked a few things when I do my my line curls, and I feel like it's making a difference. So I would say that the line hamstring curls is my go-to right now.
That's awesome. Okay, so we've talked about your training, we've talked about your nutrition. I really want to get into your relationship and your family, and I know we're kind of pressing it on time, but I really want to make sure we talk about these things, because I think they're going to be really informative for those listening, and just to keep it real as well. So you have shared custody of your son, but this almost put an end to your bodybuilding career. Do you mind opening up about the details of this situation and experience?
Oh, no, not at all. I'm completely open. Sharing custody has been extremely hard for me. A mother, we're nurturers, and the babies naturally gravitate towards the mom because of that. And, everything in me doesn't want to share custody of my son with his biological father because I feel like I can provide for him in a better way. However, it's not fair to my to not see his I would never want my son to not see his father at all. It's just when you are a mama bear, you know, I nursed my son. We just have that bond, and when you feel like you have to share that with somebody, you know, opposed to like if we were still together, we'd be in the same household, so it wouldn't be an issue, right? So now I was feeling like I just had to share that, like I had to let go of bond so he can go to his bio. And it was very hard because I was in a really, really dark place, you know, when it first happened. And I literally locked myself in a room, and it was just very dark, and I didn't do anything. I didn't speak much. And this is one of the reasons why it's been such a blessing for me, because he has been very understanding, and he has helped me through, you know, these emotions that I've had to deal with because I've had to share custody.
Mm-hmm.
And I sound so selfish when I say, you know, I have to share my son with his father. Like, that sounds so selfish. And I've had to check myself, you know, because I'm like, brought Milan into the world, and we both deserve to see him because we're both, you know, in our right minds. If he was like on drugs or doing something, you know, illegal or whatever, then you better believe I would fight full custody, and, you know, he wouldn't be around Milan. But that's not the case. And my case is basically, you know, we were a couple and we just parted ways, and Milan had to be shared.
And how did
and
that?
So, you know,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, how did that impact your bodybuilding career? How did the bodybuilding career impact that?
That at first the schedule was a little more difficult because, you know, I relocated to LA because of my job.
Mm-hmm.
So going from, and my son's father lives in the Central Valley in California. So going from LA to the halfway point, you know, which is a 2.5 hour drive, it's very time consuming. You know, you're on the road about 5 hours, and that's very time consuming. So I really had to strategically plan my workouts, and when I knew I was on the road, I either made it a rest day or I made it only cardio day, you know, and I had to plan that. And now that I live in Vegas, the point for me to meet up, it's even further.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the reasons, the other reason why, you know, I didn't want to move to Vegas, because of sharing custody. Tony and I talked, and we know that the airports in Vegas are more accessible than they are in Los Angeles. So we had planned, you know, if we moved to Vegas, then, because Tony and I are both on the same page when it comes to the custody aspect. If it's going to be an issue as far as sharing custody, as far as the time management with it, then we both agreed we would move back to California, because it's not fair to Milan, you know. And there's no way, there's absolutely no way I'm going without seeing my son. Like, that's not fair to him, and that's not fair to me, and it shouldn't be like that. So, you know, before we moved to Vegas, that was one of the main topics that came up when, you know, we were deciding and making the move. And so we both agreed that, you know, if we moved to Vegas, and, you know, I know that there was going to be some times where I would have to drive to California to get Milan. and fine, because I had already mentally prepared myself for that. But
Yeah.
the ultimate goal was to get him on flights, you know, for me to go fly to California to pick him up and fly back to Vegas, and then fly back, you know, when I would drop him off or whatnot. So that's the ultimate goal. And so we've been flying back and forth. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to fly a few times because of the virus, you know, to expose Milan to that. So I've had to drive a few more times than I would have liked to, but you know, it's out of my control. So I just got to do what I got to do, make it happen. And there's, like I said, there's no way I'm not going to see my son. So I'll do whatever it takes to see that little boy. So, yeah, so we pretty much fly back and forth. And as far as like right now with living further from him in Vegas, so travel days are travel days, and I have to prioritize that over working out, and I've had to step back, you know, and because of it, and I've been okay with that. And before I wouldn't have been okay with that because, you know, again, going back to me having the rigid schedule and just always being on the go and having that structure, used to the, you know, structure, staying on point, that kind of stuff. I've had to allow myself to miss workouts. And right now, because, you know, I'm in my improvement season, I'm okay with that because I have to prioritize as to what's more important, you know? And so it's moving from LA to Vegas as far as the custody has been positioned with bodybuilding right now because I'm in my improvement season. You know, my priority is my son. He's always going to be my priority regardless of what's going on. But as I'm in my improvement season, you know, I'm able to say, well, you know, unfortunately, I'm just going to have to miss this day of workout. And it doesn't happen often. It probably happens maybe once or twice a month. I'm pretty good about planning ahead, and, you know, if I have to do a 2-a-day on one of the days prior to, you know, flying out, then that's what I do.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
There's just been times I wasn't able to do that, and I've missed a few workouts, but nothing, you know, nothing extreme at all. So the transition with sharing custody and bodybuilding, it was hard at first, and I believe some of that attributed to when I gained a lot of weight from moving to NorCal to LA, because I had those stresses as well.
Yeah, of course.
It's co-parenting is something that both parents have to, you know, work at. And if the two parents don't have the best in the kid, it's going to be a very difficult process. And unfortunately, mine has been very difficult. But, you know, I keep faith. There's always, you know, I offer the best. And believe it or not, you know, I didn't really talk about faith or getting into faith, but I have a strong belief in the power of God. And I pray for my son's bio because there's just so much bitterness in his heart. And I'm not here to bash him or say negative things about him. But, you know, I pray for him because I feel like if he's in a good place, then he's going to be good to my son. And that's just going to work out for the betterment of my son. And I say my son because I'm so selfish with him, you know, I'm just like, he's my son, but really it's our, you know. So, you know, I always hope for the best. I pray for him. You know, I always pray that he can be cordial. It doesn't always happen like that, but, you know, we both have it, and there's reasons why we're not together, but the good thing is Milan is happy. Milan's healthy, and he is such a high, bright little individual. And I'm not just saying that because he's my son, but ever since I had a very traumatic birth with him, and he was pretty much born, he wasn't breathing when he was born. He was pretty much dead. They were able to revive him. And once he made his first cry after they worked to revive him, it was from that moment, this little boy, just strength has been so impressive, and he has just sprouted up. His strength, it just blows me away sometimes, because I'm like, you're only 6 and he's extremely smart too. So, but as long as Milan is healthy and in a good environment, and he has the love in his life that he needs to grow, then that's where my heart finds peace, regardless of if co-parenting isn't, positive. There's good days and there's bad days, right? So I live off the good days, and I run with it. So yeah, so it's been hard, but you know what do you do? Because I felt bad at first with with the thought of leaving the relationship, because I didn't want to break up the family. And I had to think about it. I was like, what do I want to teach my son? Stay in a relationship and not be happy, or leave the relationship? Then I can show you, a relationship what it's like to be happy. I don't want to teach him that it's, to stay in a relationship just for, to keep everybody together, because that's not always the helping. And so, I made the hard decision to leave, and I did, and it was extremely hard, but it was the right thing to do. And I believe if I was still there, I would be so miserable, and my son would see that, and he would feel that, and I probably would regret a lot of stuff. And I don't really do things in my life that I would regret, because you know better, you're supposed to do better. So I always try to do the things that I know is going to be the best for my family. And
Absolutely.
So now that Tony and Milan there, it's been incredible. And Tony and Milan just absolutely love each other.
That's awesome.
They get along so well, and I'm excited. The custody aspect, it still gets me at times, but like I said, I have to put myself in check and say, this is not your son, the person involved. You didn't just have this baby by yourself. You didn't get pregnant by yourself. So I got to keep that in perspective.
And I love how you said you hold on to the good moments and you stay focused on that. And earlier you talked about how Tony really is, he calls him dad, and how much that relationship has been positive for Milan. And something I wanted to talk about with you is kind of a sensitive topic that I think will be interesting to bring up and get your perspective on. But you're in an interracial marriage. And I remember when the death of George Floyd happened, and there were black boxes on everyone's feed, and I saw someone comment on your posts, and people were giving you a hard time for having the platform you do, and accusing you of not using it. And I'm curious about your experience on social media with so many different followers during a time where everyone is living in cancel culture, hot water, sharing their opinions, wearing hypercritical glasses, really, and how your husband responded to those types of things, or maybe just your experience with all of this, if you don't mind opening up. And I also want to preface the listeners, we want to keep this sensitive, but we also want to keep it real. So Chyanne, I'll let you just take the floor on that.
Absolutely. Keeping it real is one thing I truly respect about your podcast. Is you get people on here, and you allow us to share our story. And that means, telling a fake story doesn't, there's, what's the good in that, So
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate you asking these questions, because it allows me to keep it real. And you're right, this topic is so sensitive, especially now. Being in an interracial relationship, for me, there's no thoughts to it. Like, I don't ever think about him being African or me being Caucasian. That never crosses my mind, because when there's love, color doesn't matter. And I think that if you're in it or not, whether you're in a relationship or not, hating people because of the color is wrong. And that's my take on it. And with my platform, like you said, there were a couple of times where people were saying, why don't you use your platform to, for this situation? And, there's times where I think to myself, like, can I, like, I was going to get to it, but can I have a chance? And then there's other times where, it's obviously I'm in an interracial relationship, so I have no at all. Sometimes I like to sit back and see what's really going on in the world, because sometimes it's unbelievable. Sometimes, like, I was telling Tony, like, this is going on, like, it's crazy, right? And there's I just, like, I've come to the conclusion that because they are right now, as far as like Black Lives Matter and the situation going on with law enforcement and stuff, I just feel like it's all going on. Like, I feel like we wouldn't have to have, this Black Lives Matter situation if we hadn't had like over 300 years of Black lives don't matter. And it's like, obviously an era, and I just feel like love should be the superseding factor, and unfortunately it's not. And because of that, to block some people on my social media because they just don't agree with my interracial relationship. And I do some photo shoots, I do a little bit of modeling, and there's times where it's been, a little revealing compared to, the normal. You can't even normal on social media anymore, because
I
the
know what
norm
you
is like,
mean.
it's crazy. But what I was getting at was, like, the people who would support me in the posts where I show more, meaning show more skin. Those are the people that are like, giving me a hard time with the interracial relationship. And, with my take on it, it's like, I'm here to express what is on my mind. And you have the option to follow me. You also have the option not to follow me. If there's something that you don't like, simply choose not to follow me anymore. If there's something that, you post on my social media where, like with the interracial stuff, like, oh, I can't believe you like Black guys. Like, I've a lot of stuff, and that's just, some of it. And, I don't entertain it at all. I don't respond to it. I don't entertain it. If it's with the interracial stuff and it's negative, I don't want to deal with it, because it shouldn't happen that way. I just posted a picture today of Tony and I, and, I said that laundry is the only thing that should be separated by color. And that's because, we all bleed the same, right? And it doesn't matter what the color of the skin is. If you have love in your heart and you have love to share, you should share it with everybody. You should share it with Blacks. You should share it with whites, Asians. It doesn't matter because we all bleed the same. So, you know, it hasn't been hard for me as far as like with the interracial relationship. And when a couple of people have said something about the you know, using my platform to help get the word out as far as like, you know, Black Lives Matter and whatnot, I'm totally for it. And as you can see on my social media, you know, obviously I'm in an interracial relationship, but I'm for Black Lives Matter. I'm totally for all lives matter. You know what I mean? Like, it's, for me, it's not even a question. It shouldn't be a question, and there shouldn't be any reason, you know, anybody's taking a jog and, you know, they get shot because of their color. It's absurd. There's no reason why it should happen. So with me and, you know, Milan's obviously not his child, but he loves him as his child. You know, we're teaching Milan that it obviously, it doesn't matter what color your skin is. His heart is so big and loving. He just talks to anybody and everybody, and there's times where, you know, I've had to be like, okay, Milan, we got to be careful, you know, because not everybody is nice in the world. But we've been teaching him, you know, it doesn't matter if you know, his stepbrother is Black. Actually, his stepbrother is adopted, London. And, you know, London is darker than Tony. And so Milan doesn't see the difference. You know, Milan doesn't talk about the skin color or anything like that, but we've brought it up to him so that he's exposed to it, so that he knows, so that if somebody, a complete approach him with, you know, something to that extent, then he's prepared, you know, and he knows what mommy and daddy has taught him.
Yeah.
So it's been very interesting lately. And, you know, I believe at some point, I feel like it'll all come, the racism is always going to be there, unfortunately. And I just feel like it will, you know, it'll get better at that. But I feel like there's always going to be one. There's always one, even if, you know, I always say there's always one in a group. Even if the group is just two people, there's always one. And what I mean by that versus this situation is, you know, there's always going to be somebody who does not like another person or who will mistreat another person of different color. And it's very unfortunate, you know, but what we can do is really do what's in our control. And if you have kids, you know, raise your kids to love and they're, you know, discriminate against any color with that love. So, I mean, it's hard to for some people, it doesn't make sense for me to say that because they don't agree with that. And of course, that's not the only answer. That's not necessarily the right answer or whatever, but that's just what I believe. And that's what I believe we can do to make it better. Just teach our kids to love regardless of race. And if you experience, you know, somebody else hating race, it's kind of you know, there's a line like where there's a thin line where people don't want to speak up because they don't want to involve themselves and possibly, you know, be affected by it in a negative. And then there's that other side. It's like we do want to step up and say something because you know it's wrong, or you don't agree with it. So for me personally, like if a situation were to occur outside of the house where it involves racism, I typically always take the safe approach just because you don't know what people have on them or where they come from. But if I get a good feeling about it and it's a situation where I feel like I can speak up, I will.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not afraid to speak up.
Right.
I will, but because I have Milan, I obviously take caution with that. I never want to put him in harm's way, so I always have that in the back of my head whenever I'm out doing anything.
Yeah,
And of course, a bear in me,
exactly. And you just speaking up on this show about like your experiences and your beliefs around it and how you've handled those different situations does allow other people to see that there's not necessarily a proven right or wrong way, because if there was, these issues wouldn't exist anymore.
Exactly.
So, there's a lot of things that go into this that can be political, opinionated. It can drive one person off the wall and then another person like could totally agree with you. And I think at the end of the day, sometimes it's driving us apart more than it's driving us together. And the fact that we were able to like hear your experience is really awesome. And I think that can help bring us together, because it shows that, even if someone doesn't agree with your approach, or, like you said, you got some hate for not saying anything, you got some hate for saying things. So the fact that you said anything at all regardless shows that this is something you care about, you have your beliefs and opinions on, and I personally appreciate you being willing to share that on this show, because it does take courage to do that, and I think it's awesome that you did. And I want to branch off of that just a little bit, and you mentioned one other thing in that stood out to me, which is like sometimes you'll post like a sexier photo that wouldn't necessarily be considered, let's say, normal, but I think that something I personally love about you is that you embrace all aspects of being feminine and comfortable in your skin and comfortable to share your story. And I'm wondering if you've ever received judgment or backlash since you post these photos. And there's a lot of moms and there's a lot of women who feel like they lose their sexy side or can't show their sexy side because they're a mom. So I'm curious how you've managed that judgment when you've received it, or like how you feel that confident to post it.
There's I have been as far as like other moms saying things about my photos and the sexy photos and whatnot. I typically get positive comments, positive feedback from that, because I feel like becoming a mom changes your whole world. It changes your body. It changes your mind. You go through things that you've never experienced before, and sometimes you just don't really know how, because you've never experienced it. So you're just kind of learning through the process. And I completely agree with you as far as, losing that sexiness when you become a mom. And although I never really thought about losing my sexiness,
Right.
after giving birth, it's just one thing that kind of has gone hand in hand with bodybuilding and then, getting to shoots and whatnot. I definitely, crossed the point where I had to get that confidence in myself to do the photo shoot, because it wasn't there, because I didn't feel sexy. I didn't feel worthy of doing the photo shoots. I didn't feel worthy of being behind the lens, because I wasn't what everybody else was behind the lens, what you see on social media. And that's where I've had to draw the line for myself. Social media is a good thing. It can also be a bad thing. And I've had to draw the lines and tell them I'm going to have a social media account, or continue to have, because I've had it for a while. If I'm going to continue to have my social media account, I had to make a deal with myself. Like, I cannot compare myself to others. cannot allow what others think of me to affect my life in a negative way, because this is my choice to share this. And yes, they do, the option from it is there, but I also have the option to not respond to those comments and not allow them to affect me. So because, I'm putting myself on my platform because my Instagram is what you see. Like, what you see is who I am. Nothing on there is fake. I don't, post things that are not true. It's funny because, I've seen some people in person and they're like, "You're just like how you are on Instagram. That's so weird."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What?
Why is that weird?
What do you mean?"
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a handful of people say that, and I'm just like, it's crazy, it's sad in a way, but it's crazy because it's like people really do, put up a front on social media. And granted, it's not everybody, but it's out there a lot. And, sometimes what you see and what you think it is, it's not really what it is.
Yeah.
So, I've always tried to keep it really Instagram, even when it comes to the sexiness, because I think it's very important for women to stay in touch with that side, because it keeps the confidence in you, allows you to, well, one, social media allows you to express, but keeping that confidence and staying sexy, it just allows you to have one relationship, it keeps the relationship on fire. And then two, it encourages other women more than
Exactly.
there's times where I think I'm being a little too sexy, and women are appreciative of it. And I'm like, "Oh, thank you so much. Like, I appreciate, your feedback." And I get a lot of DMs, and there's, women who reach out to me and they're like, "I don't know how you do it. You're just in, you manage and balance your life." And I'm like, it hasn't always been like this. Don't get me wrong. I had to work to get here. I've had to go through a lot to create this, to get myself to take these photos, these sexy photos and whatnot. And, too, it's all about finding the photographer that you are comfortable with.
Yes.
Women out there who would love to be sexy but don't feel comfortable with shooting with a photographer. And I totally understand that. I get that. But you just have to find the right one, and obviously the one that's respectable and knows what they're doing with photography, and then who just really makes you feel confident and sexy. Because if the photographer if they make you feel awkward and you're second guessing anything, you're not comfortable with them, I guarantee you that photo shoot is gonna look awkward in photos. You know what I mean?
True.
So that plays too. So one, getting the confidence to get for your body to be in the state that you're comfortable with shooting behind the lens. You don't have to be fit. And I've had to, break myself down of that, because I would only do photo shoots when I was shredded for stage.
Right.
And, in my mind, for myself, that's the only time I was going to be doing photo shoots. But I've changed my mindset around that, because, a woman can be sexy regardless of what she looks like. She can have cellulite. She can have no curves. It doesn't matter. It's not about what you look like. It's about how you feel on the inside and how you project that. If you project, that you're not cute, you're not sexy, it's going to show. If you walk around with your head down, shoulder slouch, whatever, like, it's going to show. So having the confidence is extremely important. in being able to project the sexiness and take the photos and share it with people on social media,
Yes.
So yeah, it's good feedback. I've had negative feedback, but I'm grateful for that it's been more positive than negative. So
I love that.
I run with the positive because you just can't control people and their opinions. I even had one lady on there. She was just man, she was so negative, and she was dragging me down about this one photo, and she was one of the ones I did respond, and I responded to her because I really wanted to help her realize that the reason for me doing what I do, there's reasons behind it.
Yeah.
It came down to the point to where she literally was down talking me and everything. And the last message I got from her was, oh, by the way, you have such a large following, and I just want to thank you because your large following has literally got me 2,000 followers in the last 3 days.
The heck?
That was the last message I got from her.
What does that even mean?
Okay. She was basically, so whenever the algorithms of Instagram, obviously change, for that time, like your followers, and she was commenting on my main page on the feed, so other people were seeing her comments and stuff. And there's some people that obviously agreed with her because they got her, they started following her. Well, from what she says, anyways. But I kind of got the feeling towards the end that she was only down talking me to get more followers.
That's unfortunate.
How the algorithms were working at that time. Yeah, it was very unfortunate. And what she was saying there was no truth to it. So it just got to a point to where I stopped entertaining her, and she even I blocked her, actually, even created another account and reached out to me from the other account.
God, some people.
So it just made me laugh. It's like people really don't have anything better to do than to tear other people down. Like, it's so unfortunate.
It's so messed up.
But you got to take it with a grain of salt.
I'm glad that you choose to focus on the positives more than anything, and that those ones are few and far between. And just everything we've talked about on this show so far, you've kept it real, and that's the main mission. And I so appreciate you being willing to do that. And we covered a good amount of different things, and I really like the depth you went into everything and sharing your experiences. And now I'd really just love to know what your best advice is for someone who has never competed before, and then your best advice for girls who are on their road to pro.
Oh, that's a good question. So the best advice I can give for somebody who competed before is to, one, do your homework. And when I say do your homework, because it's such a competitive sport, even at the amateur level, I would say look into hiring yourself a coach. If you don't know anybody or you don't have any connects to a good coach, you're more than welcome to reach out to me on Instagram. I have a few good options, but I would say hire a coach. If you cannot afford that, then I would say make Google your best friend, because there's so much information out there on rebuilding nutrition, on even competing. Just tap into all the resources that you possibly can to educate yourself on what to expect, what it requires, for your stage, because it's so much more than just what than just stepping on that stage. There's a lot to it. So I would just say, educate yourself. If you can afford a coach, get a coach. And then look into all the expenses that come with competing, because if you cannot afford it, it's definitely you have to plan for it, really, because it's an expense, and that's just the truth of the matter, you know.
Absolutely.
For somebody who is amateur wanting to turn pro, my recommendation from my experience, to first, you need to know the criteria for what it takes to qualify to become, you know, to get to nationals. Know what it takes to qualify to get to nationals. Obviously, if you have a coach, they're going to help you out with all of this. And then once you get to nationals, you have to go into the show with, you know, obviously if you do your best up to the point of with nutrition, working out, that kind of stuff, as long as you give it your best, then be proud of yourself. Because most people go to a national show and they've taken overalls in their amateur shows and do not come close to getting first call outs. And it's just heart-wrenching. It takes a big toll on a lot of people. So you have to be mentally prepared for this. You know, I feel like as an amateur, I feel like the girls, or not even just girls, but in bodybuilding period, the people who lose first have more motivation for winning. And I only say this because, you know, if you're competing as an amateur and you take number one at the show, you take overall every single time, you don't know what it's like to lose. You don't know what it feels like to lose on the stage yet. And that can be very, very, how do I say it? When you go to a national show, that can have a huge impact in a negative way on a person if they don't prepare themselves for that. And I'm not saying like prepare to lose, you know,
Yeah.
because that's not what it's about.
But see the bright side in losing.
Obviously wants to win, right? Right. Yeah. Everybody wants to win. So I would just say, for the years turning pro, get a posing coach if you don't have one, because you can best looking body in the industry, but if your posing and transitions are not on point, you are not going to make it. And if you do, you're far and few between. Like it, you know, I've seen a lot of girls, they have incredible bodies, but they look like a robot on stage. And, you know, it's not putting them down or anything, but you have to perfect your posing, because it's about the overall package that you present, from posing to your proportions, to your suit, to your hair, to your makeup, to your tan, everything. So invest time into hiring invest money into hiring a posing coach. If you don't know how to do your makeup, obviously, you know, hire somebody to do that. But overall, I would say, if you're trying to turn pro, ask yourself why. Why are you turning pro? You know, and if your why is going to propel you to, like some people just want, that's it. Like they don't, that's all they want. And that's okay. A lot of other girls, they want to turn pro, and, you know, everybody has the ambition to go to Olympia, because that's the greatest stage, right? But if I can give advice to those, I would say, even if your ambition is to get to Olympia, I would say to be the best student to the sport that you can be, because there's no point in your bodybuilding career or journey that you cannot learn something. So just always be open to learn, because, you know, the bodybuilding industry has been ever changing. You know, one year they want the girls soft and, you know, not as muscly, and the next year it seems like shredded to the bone and they're beefy, you know, they got a lot of muscle. So I would say, you know, always be a student to the industry, because the criteria, although it seems to say the same on paper. Every show is different. It depends on who shows up, who you're going against. And so you want to prepare yourself for that, mentally. You want to prepare yourself for what the right show is. And like I said, if you they're going to know what the right show for you to compete in is. They're going to know what it takes to get you prepared for your show. But as from an amateur, from an amateur pro, I always try to continue to learn because things always change. And, although I have a goal to get to Olympia, I have a time limit for that goal. If I don't reach that goal within a certain time limit, then, I'm not going to strive to do that anymore. I'm going to take a change in plans. But that's just because personally, I have other goals that I want in life. I have, Tony and I want to have another child. So, he has
awesome.
kids from previous relationship, and obviously, we want to have our own child together. So, I'm going to take a couple years and see where I get with competing, go all in like I do. And, after a couple of years, I'm 34 years old, so I don't want to have another child too late. So I have to set some boundaries for myself. So if I can't get to Olympia within, I would say, the next 2 to 3 years, then, that's okay. And I'll be okay with that. Because for me, getting to pro was one of my dream goals, but I didn't stop there. But being able to compete as a pro, I've already done 3 shows and I still want to do a whole bunch more. So just as far as like, to your question, continue to learn throughout the process as a pro athlete, and stay consistent with your regimen, regardless of whether you're competing for the stage or whether you're in your improvement season. And again, being on a flexible plan, being on a flexible diet, which I know a lot of people don't agree with, but it's working for me and I absolutely love it. So it's allowed me to have fun and stay within a good range for my weight, so that when I do decide to compete again, I'm not going to have to work as hard as I've had to work. So I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, remaining a student to life, honestly, is really the best advice I can give, because you can never know too much.
Yes, and I appreciate
and
that.
Know everything, so you can. I was just gonna say, you can always learn something, regardless.
Absolutely. There's always an opportunity to learn, and that advice is really spot on. I mean, for any competitor and non-competitors even as well, because we have some people who don't compete to listen to the show. And so I appreciate you sharing your advice for both and just coming on again and sharing so openly and your experiences in all these different areas of life so that others can learn and broaden their horizons as well. And so I want everyone to be able to connect with you. And you mentioned that they could reach out to you on Instagram. So I'm going to put your Instagram handle in the show notes page, but do you want to just say it out loud so people can look it up right now in case they're listening?
Absolutely. You can definitely find me on Instagram. It's Bikini Barbie 24. BIK Barbie, and then the number 24.
Perfect. So I'm going to put that in the show notes page, guys. That's on celestial.fit/podcast. You can go there and connect with Chyanne that way. Or of course, you can just tag us as you listen. And she is super responsive and always open to talk, which is awesome. And I love that, there's so many things you've been through that you can help other people through too. And I appreciate you sharing your experiences, your outlooks on those experiences, and for coming on and sharing your time with us.
Absolutely. I am so grateful that you reached out to me and invited me to your podcast. As you know, I listen in to your podcast podcast and invited me. I was just like, really? I was so excited. And I told you earlier, but I was an hour early to the podcast because I was so excited
I
to be
love
on.
it. That makes me so happy, and I appreciate that so much.
No,
Thank you.
I definitely appreciate you. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate you
Oh,
allowing
of
me to share,
course.
my story here. So I'm grateful for this opportunity. Thank you.
Absolutely. Of course, it was my pleasure. And I am so grateful that you listened. I'm so grateful that you came on and said yes. And to everybody listening, I hope you all enjoyed this. Definitely send love and gratitude to Cheyenne. And I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode